Welcome to Lunch Talk 56, hosted by the Faculty of Education, Universitas Islam International Indonesia. It is a pleasure to have you all with us today, both joining us here at the theater room and those participating online via Zoom. So, before we start our session today, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Alifa Erhan, and I will be your moderator for today's session. And before we begin, let me briefly introduce the topic of today's lunch talk. Our session today is entitled Reimagining Teacher Professionalism in an Enabled World. And we are very fortunate to have an expert in this area to guide our discussion today. And it is my great pleasure to welcome our speaker, Associate Professor Siti Maisuri Patahudin, PhD, from the University of Canberra, Australia. Before we start our session, let us listen to the opening speech from our Dean, the Dean of the Faculty of Education, to Professor Nina Nurmila, PhD. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Today we have a special guest from far away, Canberra, Associate Professor Siti Patahudin, Siti Maisaroh Patahudin, PhD. She is actually the PhD supervisor of Ibu Dr. Desina Wahyu Winarti. So this is like excellent model for you that after you finish your study, please be in touch and get along well with your supervisor. And I'm grateful for the coming of Pak Bambang, Budes, Pak Lukman, Pak Budi, and at the back, Pak Andar. Hello, Pak Andar. And also all the students, both master and PhD. Thank you very much for coming in the very hot day. Even though it is lunch talk, we are very sorry that we cannot. We no longer provide lunch, but you are still coming here today, and I would like to also greet online participants who might have already in the Zoom. Yeah. Uh, so Ibu Associate Professor Siti Patahudin is our affiliated fellow, which means that she will be based here at the Faculty of Education while she is doing many other works that she planned ahead in advance. Even though she is not only visiting our campus, but also other campuses, not only in Indonesia, but also abroad. And in October, she will organize a workshop on about how to apply for international fundings, yeah, for research or collaboration. And we are happy to invite students also. Previously, we were thinking about only involving our lectures in the Faculty of Education, but because accreditation or whatever it is encourage us to do collaborative research with students, and students need to learn from us during our research. So we are open the registration also for all the students. Yeah, so students can learn. Yeah, if you are alumni and you want to be involved, you are welcome. Yeah. And today, Ibu Associate Professor Siti Patahudin will talk about reimagining teacher professionalism in an AI-enabled world. Yeah. So back in 2020, when I was still studying in Lemhanas, yeah, one of the topic is about society 0.50. Yeah, with the indicators that the use of AI, Internet of Things. Now, 5 or 6 years later, now we are in that age. We are using AI, yeah, but of course, we need to be in control, not to be driven by using AI. I still remember the lecture by one of the lectures from Maranatha. Do you still remember, Pak Bambang, the name? Who is Oscar, Dr. Oscar, yeah? Yeah. So the research shows that the higher your use of AI, the lower is your use of brain. So be careful about that, not to be in control, but you control the AI. You can use AI, for example, for the technical things that can be faster your work. For example, the lecture are required to have like the format of our semester plan RPS to be like in OBE format. So then we can ask the help of Gemini, for example, to do that. Even though I do not learn yet how to do it, but you can use that, yeah. And you are like digitally native and technologically, and maybe you are friend of AI, but you might be able to use it. Okay, let's listen to Ibu Siti. So I would like to close my opening speech. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Nina, for the great welcoming speech for us. And now, please joining me to welcome our speaker today, Prof. Siti Maisuri Fatahuddin. Good afternoon, Prof. Before we start our session, please allow me to read the short biography from our speaker today. So, Associate Professor Siti Maisuri Patahuddin is Director of Indonesian Partnerships in the Faculty of Education at the University of Canberra, Australia. She is a mathematics educator, teacher educator, and researcher with more than 2 decades of experience in mathematics education, teacher professional learning, STEM education, and educational partnership development. She completed her PhD at the University of Queensland in 2009 and subsequently held postdoctoral and research appointments at the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa, Charles Sturt University, and the University of Canberra. And her research focuses on mathematical lesson design and pedagogy, spatial reasoning, mathematical knowledge for teaching, teacher professional learning, and the use of digital technologies, including social media and generative artificial intelligence, or Gen AI, to enhance teaching and learning. And it is written here that she is also an investigator on the 2027 to 2030 Australian Research Council Linkage Project, Eco-Theology, Religion, State and Environmental Governance in Indonesia, with the amount of grant of 481.80 Australian dollars, led by the Australian National University in partnership with the Ministry of Religious Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. And beyond research, Professor Patahuddin is deeply committed to strengthening educational collaboration between Australia and Indonesia. So, Professor, without further ado, the time is yours. Sure, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia for inviting me to be part of this lunch talk. Thank you for the leadership. Thank you to Professor Nina Nurmila, the Dean of Faculty of Education, my colleague, Dr. Destina Winarti, who has been very generous organizing all the activities during my outside study program at OUE Triple IU. Okay, yeah. And also special thanks to everyone, both in person and online, for taking the time to be with us to not simply talk about AI, but actually to think together about what it means to be a teacher in a world increasingly shaped by AI. So think about what has changed in just the last few years. Okay. A teacher can now open Gen AI and say, design a lesson for me. Within the second, the lesson plan is ready. For example, give me 5 questions for my students to check my students' understanding. 5 questions appear. Or give feedback on my students' work. Done within seconds. Or explain these mathematical ideas in 3 different ways. Done within seconds. So things that once required considerable professional time can now be generated almost instantly. So if AI can do everything, we could respond, so what is the teacher for? It's an interesting question. Perhaps you said teachers have knowledge. But the answer can be more complicated than that. Our students can ask AI for responses. Teachers can ask explanation through Gen AI. So information that took considerable time, now it can be generated almost instantly. So perhaps the defining question of teacher professionalism is no longer simply what does the teacher know? Perhaps an increasingly important question is, how does the teacher decide what is worth using? Let me slow down here. Let me highlight. Yeah, an important question might be, how does the teacher decide what is worth using? So I must mention this slowly for everyone to digest these important statements. AI can generate information and possibilities. Teachers need knowledge to understand and evaluate them. Teachers need professional judgment to decide what to do. So imagine, AI gives me a beautifully designed mathematics lesson. It looks professional. The activities are engaging and the explanation sounds convincing. But as a teacher, as an educator, I still have to ask, is the mathematics correct? If that's mathematics lesson, is this explanation conceptually sound? Is this appropriate for these students, for my students, for certain students? What misconception might it create? Does it actually support the learning I want? And should I use it? Should I modify it? Or reject it completely? So AI can give me an answer, but it cannot remove my responsibility to judge that answer. And this leads me to my central argument today. The more AI can generate, the more important teachers' professional judgment becomes. Let me repeat. The more AI can generate, the more important teachers' professional judgment become. So perhaps the most interesting question is not, will AI replace teachers? The more important question, perhaps, what kind of teachers do we need in an AI-enabled world? So let us put aside for a moment. Think about what technology has done to other professions. Okay? So medicine has changed enormously. My daughter is a medical doctor. She told me the doctors use Gen AI, artificial intelligence, in the process. Even one day before the senior doctor want to do an operation, he asked, can you check what procedure do I need to take? Gen AI give the list of the steps that the doctor has to do next. Imagine, it requires professional judgment to say yes or no. Okay, engineering has changed. Biotechnology has changed. Computing has certainly changed due to the advance of artificial intelligence. But notice something. The profession did not disappear. They evolved. So a technology change, the meaning of professional expertise also changed. So perhaps we should not begin by asking whether AI will replace teachers, but perhaps we should ask question, how is AI changing the nature of teachers' professional work? Okay? So we should also ask now how to define teacher professionalism. Before I go further, I want to briefly locate this question in my own research journey. For many years, I have studied different aspects of teaching and teacher learning. I've studied teacher professional development and community of practice. I've studied mathematics and spatial reasoning with Dr. Destina Winarti, and how teachers to redesign curriculum to create richer opportunities in mathematics learning. And more recently, I have studied learner agency, co-design, teacher development, reflection, and professional transformation. These are the two latest papers that were published about this study. So these studies have taught me a great deal about teachers, about what they know, about how they learn, and about how they design and how they change their practice. But when Gen AI arrived, I realized there was something important that I had not examined deeply enough. Across my previous studies, teachers were constantly making decisions. Okay, what should I teach? How should I represent this idea? Is this task appropriate for these learners? Should I follow the curriculum as written or adapted? Or what should I do when what I planned doesn't work? So these decisions were everywhere in my research. But I had not put professional judgment at the center. I haven't foreground professional judgment in my previous study. And now Gen AI has made it more visible because when AI can generate explanation, feedback, worksheet, mathematical task, perhaps the defining professional capacity is not simply the ability to produce all those things. It is the capacity to judge their quality, appropriateness, and educational value. So, and that led me to a question that I am now increasingly interested in. What should define teacher professionalism in AI-enabled world? I am curious about what should define teacher professionalism in an AI-enabled world. So my emerging argument is that AI changes the nature of professional work. It changes how knowledge is created, accessed, and shared. It changes what society expects from professionals. So if I ask you, what makes someone a professional teacher? What would you say? Good salary. Yeah. What else? Perhaps the first answer would be content knowledge. Yeah, a typo. Content knowledge. A mathematics teacher needs to understand the mathematics. A science teacher needs to understand the science. But knowing the subject is not enough. You can't invite mathematicians to come into the classroom to teach mathematics. They have great content knowledge, but that's not enough. Teachers also need pedagogical expertise, knowing how to help learners to understand. Yeah? And teaching has always carried ethical responsibility because the decision we are we make in the classroom impact our learners, impact our young learners, our students in the classroom. So these have traditionally been central to teacher professionalism. I am not suggesting that they are becoming less important because of Gen AI. Not. In fact, I would argue almost the opposite. So AI introduces a new question. When some of the intellectual product of teaching can now be generated by machine, how does these dimensions of professionalism need to evolve? Because every profession evolved due to this technology. So sometimes we talk about AI as though it will simply another tool. Sometimes, yeah. I don't think that captures the significance what is happening right now. A calculator helps us to calculate. The search engine helps us to find information, but generative AI can produce something that looks like professional intellectual work. Looks like. It can produce explanation. It can design a task. It can propose assessment. It can generate feedback. Huh? It can even produce something that looks like a complete lesson from a very famous professor. But there is an important distinction here. Generating information is not the same as possessing professional knowledge. And possessing knowledge is not the same as exercising professional judgment. Very important. So, information, knowledge, judgment, 3 keywords I have today. They are closely related, but they are not the same thing. Gen AI can generate enormous amount of information and plausible educational content. Plausible, what does it mean? It looks very logical. It's empirically evidenced. It looks like they are plausible, but it's not correct. So, teachers need professional knowledge to interpret and evaluate that content. So, professional judgment is what allows teachers to decide what to do with it in a particular situation, with particular learners, and for particular purposes. And this is why Gen AI is genuinely powerful for education. I don't want us to approach this conversation from a position like of fear. Yeah, I don't want you to approach in that way. Like, oh, this is so scary. There are extraordinarily possibilities here. They can be very, very advantageous. But we have to be mindful. So teachers can generate examples, teachers can generate explanation, teachers can develop lesson ideas, can generate assessment possibilities, and can receive suggestion for feedback. But for a busy teacher, this can be very handy and useful. However, there is a problem. AI can generate a lesson plan, but it cannot guarantee that it is a good lesson plan. Okay? AI can generate an explanation, but it cannot guarantee that this explanation will help the students, our student in the classroom understand. AI can generate feedback, but it cannot guarantee that this is the feedback that this learner needs at this particular moment by moment. You can't ask Gen AI in the classroom while dealing with different types of students in your classroom. No, there is no way. So AI can give us something we have never had at this scale. Lots of possibilities. It creates a new professional problem. So how do we choose? Let me ask you, if AI can generate all of these things, what does the teacher contribute then? So think about one of your best teachers. What made that person a great teacher? You have at least one. Yeah. Was it simply because they had more information in their mind? Probably not. Probably a great teacher understood the subject and understood you and noticed when you were confused. Your great teacher knew when to explain, when to step back and be quiet, or knew when to challenge you, change direction when learning was not working. I had an experience. I spent my whole weekend to create my video, my lesson design, and because that was the first lesson for my students, they didn't watch my video before the class, and I have to really think in a very, very deep and reflective way and ask myself, so what? It is impossible for me to be angry to my student. I want them to learn. I have to make decision that is mathematically rich. I have to make decision minute by minute by observing their expression, their smile, their personal situation. I try to capture everything and making decision for the best learning for my students. So great teacher make decision where there is no algorithm, yeah, and no single correct answer. Do you agree with me? So now I talk about professional judgment. Judgment distinguishes professional from technician. Professionals are not professionals simply because they possess information. Nor are they professionals simply because they can follow the procedures. No, they are professionals because they can draw on knowledge, experiences, ethics, and understanding the context to make sound judgment when the answer is not obvious. So, and teaching is full of those moments. So, remember, very important, I intentionally make it red to get your attention. The more AI can generate, the more important our capacity to judge becomes. Okay? So, professional judgment is informed by judgment. Let me stay with this idea for a moment. Because when I say professional judgment, I don't mean simply having an opinion. Professional judgment is informed judgment, informed by empirical studies, by theory, by thoughtful evidence. It's not an opinion. It's not a random action in the classroom. Teaching has to be intentional. We need to help our teachers to really realize that minute by minute, decision within minutes can be very impactful for our learners. So let me give you something very ordinary. Okay? Imagine I ask Gen AI, design a group activity to help students understand fraction. Let me type that using Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT. Within seconds, I have an activity. Now, professional works begin. I have to ask, is the mathematics sound? What understanding of fractions does this activity actually develop? What might students misunderstand? Which students might be excluded because of that lesson? Is this appropriate for my students? What should I change? Or perhaps, most importantly, should I use it at all? Then perhaps AI does not remove professional work, it shifts some of it from generation towards evaluation and judgment. Before Gen AI, producing a lesson, an explanation, or a set of questions could use a considerable time. Ibu Dr. Destina Winarti and myself and my team from University of Canberra and mathematics educator in West Nusa Tenggara spend a huge amount of time to support teachers in developing a good lesson. Today, generation can happen in seconds. I spent many hours to prepare a very good lesson for my students in Australia to model productive pedagogy. I spent a huge amount of time. Now, but the speed of generation doesn't guarantee the quality of what has been generated. In fact, the easier it becomes to generate alternatives, the more important it becomes to distinguish between them. So I need you to take away this important message. AI reduces the cost of generation. Agree? But it increases the importance of judgment. And this has an important implication. We sometimes hear the argument that because of AI can provide explanations, lesson plans, mathematical tasks, answers, teachers may need less knowledge because they can provide it for us. I would argue that this conclusion is dangerous. Okay? To judge well, teachers need to know well. To judge well, teachers need to know well. If I don't understand the mathematics, how can I recognize a subtle mathematical error? If I don't understand well, how could I recognize so many posts through Facebook, through Instagram, presenting incorrect mathematical ideas? They look beautiful, lots of colors, beautiful design, but how could I recognize if it contains errors? So if I don't understand my students, how can I judge whether the activity from Gen AI will work for them? I spent at least 2 weeks to really working hard to understand my students, who they are, what they are interested in. I talk to them in front of my class, outside of the class, while they are eating. I smile a lot for them to develop the trust. That's my teacher. As a teacher, that's my job. So AI can generate possibilities. Professional knowledge allows us to evaluate them. Professional judgment allows us to decide. More AI capability does not make professional knowledge less important. It makes knowledgeable judgment more consequential. Because I knew teachers in Indonesia access lots of Gen AI tools. They have lots of training. When I planned my outside study program, some ideas came to me. Why don't you go to Europe? Why don't you go to America? You can work with them, you can write. I have interest in understanding how Gen AI affordances can help enhance mathematics teacher learning in Indonesia without diminishing critical thinking. I want to understand that because my job, my entire career, my research is about understanding teacher learning. It's such an important job, but difficult job. I often open my course in the first meeting. I told my pre-service teachers, I said, do you think you want to put your children in the flight with not professional pilot? They all said, no, 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 it's so dangerous if the pilot can navigate a very complex weather. All right? And I said to them, that is exactly the same as school. Do you want to put your children in the classroom with teachers who are not professional? No, we don't want. And now, because of Gen AI, it is getting complex. It requires lots of judgment, professional judgment. Okay? So I want to say that more AI capabilities does not make professional knowledge less important. It makes knowledgeable judgment more consequential. So now implication one. If professional judgment is becoming more important, then this has significant implication for those of people working in universities. Okay? Implication one is for teacher education. We need to ask ourselves, what exactly are we preparing future teachers for? Are we preparing them to use today's technologies? Are we preparing them how to use the current technology? Or are we preparing them to make good professional decisions in a world where the technology will continue to change? I think there is a danger that our response to Gen AI becomes too technical. How do you use Canva? How to use ChatGPT? So we teach our student, how do you write a good prompt? How do you generate a lesson plan? These things may be useful, but they are not enough. So what? Perhaps instead of asking our pre-service teachers simply to generate something with AI, we should ask them to evaluate what AI generates. Imagine an assessment task where we give pre-service teachers 3 AI-generated lesson plan. We don't ask, which one do you like? We ask, which would you use? What would you change? What would you reject? And what professional knowledge support your decision? We need to create space for them to exercise their professional judgment. Okay? So that changes the purpose of AI in teacher education. AI then becomes not only a tool for producing teaching materials, it can become an object through which professional judgment is developed. So professional judgment is also a leadership responsibility. Now I am talking the second implication. Professional judgment is also a leadership responsibility. And that's why I spend also some time to talk with key stakeholders, with leaders in Indonesia. So far, I have talked mainly about teachers, but if professional judgment matters in classroom, it also matters at the level of the leadership and policy. So when a new AI technology emerged, our first response should not simply be how quickly can we adopt it. Yeah. It's not about how can we ban AI. No. Both responses begin with the technology, perhaps. We need to begin somewhere else, with education. We should ask, What educational problems are we trying to solve? What does this technology enable and what might it undermine? Okay? Who benefits and who might be disadvantaged because of this technology? Because education is for justice. Yeah? We need that question. Who got advantages and who got disadvantages? And what should remain fundamentally human? So these are not primarily technological questions. They are questions of professional judgment. And this brings me to perhaps the most important implication for educational leadership. Technology adoption is not equal to educational improvement. A classroom can be technologically advanced and still offer poor learning experiences. And this reminds me with my PhD study, I did an ethnographic study in Australia for my PhD study 20 years ago. I spent 1 year in classroom in a very rich school and one outside of the city, quite poorer school. What I found? The learning, the mathematics learning in the poorer school was so rich and productive and engaging and enthusiastic compared to the school in the city with lots of facilities. That was my research. And what makes it different? Teachers made it huge difference. So technology adoption is not the same as educational improvement. A university can adopt the latest AI tools without necessarily improving the quality of teacher education. So the measure of progress should not how much AI we use or how quickly we have those technology, how quickly we adopt it. That's okay. So the question that matters, does its use contribute meaningfully to learning? So not pro AI, not anti AI, but pro learning, pro teacher professional learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Professor Siti for the great explanation and a very thought-provoking session from her. Now we move on to the Q&A session. So I invite all of our audiences. If you have any question, please raise your hand and we'll invite you to ask question. Anybody here? Or maybe our audiences from Zoom? All right.
Okay, thank you so much. I am Umam, PhD batch 3. So my questions, my background is English education department, and I work as a lecturer as well for undergraduate, preparing for teachers. And this is very interesting. Previously, like I also joined a lot of conference seminar in English education department discussing AI. And then when we got the information, it's like similar with this one in the sense that we have to use AI as a partner in learning. So this is easy to say, but it's very hard to implement, as you have explained as well here. So my question as an English, a teacher educator that preparing teachers for the future, we know that and we realize that we never know what will come. And then even we are as a teacher educator, we are still struggling to understand this AI. So in Indonesia especially, because in my university, the students come from different backgrounds. Some of them are very good with AI. Some of them are really illiterate in response to the digital literacy. So maybe is there any research that has been conducted in developed countries to deal with this kind of scarcity or differences between the students? Because we are struggling and our students are struggling. So what we are supposed to do actually as to help them. So we have to help ourselves first. So that's my question so far. Because sometimes when we are talking about, okay, we can use this, it sounds easy for some of them, even they are advanced, but for some the others, it's very hard for them to understand what you are talking about. I don't understand what you are talking about. Something like, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Umam. Yeah, if I can paraphrase what you were saying, yes, Gen AI is everywhere. We are struggling to understand now what should we do. Okay, so as I was explaining before, that exercising professional judgment is really important. We really have to exercise our judgment. How do we know that's correct? How do we know this is what we want? What is our goal? What do we want to understand? So we need to be mindful. We need to slow down. Sometimes I told my PhD student to do a slow reading. Yeah. We need to take time. Yeah. Okay. We need to take time to ask. The machine give us answers. How do we know? So just imagine, as you may all understand the nature of the work of this machine, it uses pattern recognition. Imagine one day people come to you and said to you, this is my work. Because the machine pick things, all right, randomly or based on patterns. So I guess because as a teacher, educator, we want to create opportunities for students to exercise their judgment. We also have to exercise our judgment. And we still have resources. Gen AI provide additional resources. We still have professors, we still have journal articles, we still have high quality reading resources, lots of good resources online. So my key answer is exercising judgment and also give time opportunities for students to exercise their judgment. How do they know? I give you an example what I did for my student. Because of Gen AI, I don't believe my assessment would work. Before, I asked them to create lesson design for 2 weeks. So usually one unit will be conducted within 2 weeks. So I asked them to create a unit plan with about 10 lesson plan. Because of Gen AI, what I changed totally, I asked them to just create one in a very detail, and I asked them to teach and video themselves. I want to see the enactment of the theory. I want to read their judgment. Yeah. And that worked very, very well. They spend huge amount of time. They use Gen AI perhaps to enhance their content knowledge and their pedagogical knowledge. But they know my criteria. They know that they have to judge the quality of the resources that they used. Another example from one professor in Harvard University, based on what I watched from YouTube, a professor gave a task, usually mathematical task, to the students to solve the task. Like when my husband did master degree at UGM, he had to solve lots of mathematics problem. Yeah. But what this professor did, they asked students to solve the problems. You can use any Gen AI, but then they have an exam where problems, 3 mathematics problem were picked randomly, and the student have to explain in a very, very clear way. So students use Gen AI to learn, to prepare their exam, but they have to perform in an oral exam. Thank you. I hope that helps, Pak Umam.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Siti. So next we have question from our audience in Zoom. Perhaps I'll read first the question from Zikri Rahmat Ramadan. Yeah. So the question is, how do we assess and improve teacher judgmental capacity for teachers with different background? Maybe we'll go with this question first, Prof. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pak Zikri. That's a really important question. How do we assess and improve teacher judgmental capacity to teachers with different background? My 1.5 year research will answer your question. So I've recently received a grant, not big, from my university. It's a seeding grant, 50,000 Australian dollar, to work with, including Budestina, Pak Putra, Mas Badrun, and my colleague in China, so in 3 countries. And that's the question that I want to answer based on empirical studies. But I can also give you a related answers based on my team systematic literature review about the use of Gen AI in mathematics education. Clearly, the study suggests the benefits of Gen AI, for example, in designing lessons, mathematical tasks, in designing a lesson assessment, in explain mathematical concept, but all those benefits were achieved through guided practice, guided learning. It's not a random. It's through structured, guided professional learning programs. And I think if we want to improve this judgment, my opinion, it has to be structured. But I don't know how to answer this one yet. Based on empirical study, that's the answer by the end of next year, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Siti. So for Pak Zikri, stay tuned with the result of Prof. Siti's research. Okay, so next we have question from our audience here. From Ibu Desinta. Okay, please. Oh, Bapak Zikri is Ibu Siti students. All right.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Prof. Siti. I am Desinta from the PhD in Education, students here. I have a questions regarding about the professional development. This is very interesting and eye-opening about how we can we can like enhance the professional judgment for our teachers, but sometimes this has become a dilemma in Indonesia, especially in the rural area, that our teacher is not digital fluency. I mean, they are not ready with the even the Gen AI. That's why there are a lot of teacher professional development that helping them to how to prompting and how to use Gen AI, how to use ChatGPT and so on. That's because maybe the teacher are not really know about the AI. And then after seeing this, and then this is very important to have the professional judgment. Sorry, so I'll continue. So this has become some time of dilemma. If we want to have like a teacher professional development, which one that we have to prepare first? Is it the technology adoptions or the professional exercise the judgment for the teachers? Or I mean, how if we combine about them, and maybe you can give us about tips and trick about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Desinta, for the question. So, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Desinta. So according to Bu Desinta, in Indonesia, some of the teachers are not fluent yet in accessing Gen AI. That's very interesting, and I'd like to know more about that. But I think what you were saying, it is empirically proven. So we have a study with Brin. We did a survey study about 2 or 3 years ago when Gen AI was quite new. The survey was completed by, I hope I remember it correctly, more than 2,000 teachers. The results are very interesting because I don't even know many of the Gen AI tool they listed. I got like, wow, teachers in Indonesia are very familiar with Gen AI tools, different things. And I only knew ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini at the time. They have access to it. But also, some of them are familiar but do not use it. About 50% of them, they don't use Gen AI tool, and about 50% used it. But almost 100% of teachers who haven't used it wanted to use, and saying want to have a professional development to learn how to use it. So I guess that's the finding that we got. Now the question, how then we alleviate this problem? And that's where my implication too is very important. My implication too has to answer at the level of policy and leadership. They need to ask question, what got advantages and what got disadvantages from the presence of Gen AI. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ibu Desinta, for the question and Prof. Siti for the answer. Next question from our colleagues here, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Ibu Siti Maisuri. Thank you for a very insightful presentations about the professional judgment, the importance of professional judgment in the era of GNII. I would like to reflect about my current studies. So I'm asking teachers not necessarily to define it as a professional judgment, but I believe it has connections. So teachers is giving several questions from the textbooks, and then I'm asking them to rate about the cultural responsiveness of the questions given in their textbook, their used textbooks. And then they are giving ratings, and then they also explains why they are rating about that one. At the beginnings, what is my finding is they are having a differing ratings because some of the things. The first one is because their beliefs about the mathematics itself. Mathematics is not it's culturally natural. So it's not really related with culture. They do not believe that mathematics is a human activity. So that's why I also giving some kinds of professional development related with that to improve their judgments. And then the second one, I believe that this is about the content knowledge. So I give also the professional development related with the content knowledge. And the third one, I believe that the way they are teaching is not really reflecting their learners. That's why I also giving the professional development related with that. And then after that, I'm asking them again to re-rate again and give their ratings about the same questions. Some of the teachers have a different ratings. Some of them are not, and some of them are, interestingly, they having like lower rating, meaning that their judgments is not really improved. After those kinds of professional development, some of teachers have some, maybe I can say that they have lower professional judgments, if I can leveling it. So according to you, with your experience, do you have any kinds of the idea why after several things that I have done, some teachers still having a different idea of the professional judgments, even though I have exposed them with some kinds of exercising their professional judgment? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Prof, please.
Thank you very much, Bu Nurina.
Faradila, Bu.
Faradila, I always
Nurina is my friend. It's always like that.
yes, Faradila. I am so sorry. So the two, Faradila and Nurina, they are both very, very smart, and yeah, and I always remember them, but I still sometimes said Nurina Faradila as Nurina. So now let me say thank you, Fanny. Okay. All right. You are wondering. You ask teachers to rate perhaps about the connection between mathematics and culture, pre and post, and you found some rating increased, some were stagnant, and some were decreased. What does research say about teachers' belief? Changing teachers takes time. You can't expect giving them an intervention in a short-term period and then they change. Sometimes in my study, myself in mathematics, it takes more than a year to see the impact of my approach. We just have to realize that teacher professional learning, some teachers can change quite quickly, some teachers are not. And therefore, we need to continuously investigate why. So as a PhD student, I think what is really important is to have different ways to capture the data. Because the increase is important, but the explanation of the changes are more important. We can reflect this one to our own. Some teachers were very busy. When I did my PhD with one teacher, I complained. I thought like I've done everything. I prepared it, but why this teacher didn't uptake this idea? And my supervisor said to me, Siti, you are a PhD student. You are full-time PhD student. You don't have lots of classes to teach. They are very busy. Finding time might be difficult. And therefore, from my thesis, I finally established 5 characteristics of effective teacher learning. Number 1, ongoing. I want to find some proof that the intervention that I did has an ongoing impact. And my PhD student, Dr. Ida Nurmila, had that evidence. After the project finished, the teacher even joined a competition for a creative teachers or high performance teachers. So it has an impact, but it is outside of the study. The second one, collaborative. We need to create opportunities among teachers to collaborate. They learn from watching others. And this is what I found really interesting in Shanghai. When I took my pre-service teachers to Shanghai, I was so amazed seeing a public school in Shanghai. I witnessed the best mathematics teaching and the best English teaching. And during I was there, the teacher was always observed by many teachers behind the classroom. I saw one day, like it's about more than nearly 20 people from outside, coming to the classroom and observe. And I saw one teacher next to me, and I observed what she did is noted down all of the things that the teachers in front of the classroom did. When the teacher explained, that was an English teacher, draw a fish, they also draw a fish here. They noted the location of the writing, they noted the enactment. It was unbelievable. And it was so smooth, like using technology. My students really admired. They have lots of nice routine. So the point that I want to say here, teachers learn from other teachers. And I also attended one modeling teaching model where professor was there to give comment at the end. A teacher taught a student in front of the class, and teachers from different provinces came and watched. And even though it was in China, we work collaboratively with my pre-service student, like sending, oh, this is what I captured from the lesson plan. So with WeChat, they translated the lesson plan. They took photos. So there has to be a collaboration things there. The third one is student oriented. What we deliver in the classroom with teachers, that has to be connected with their students. They care their students. They want to improve their students.
can we offer something that will directly useful for their daily teaching? The fourth one is consider their context, their personal context, their school context, their environment. We have to consider that. And the fifth is enhancing content and pedagogical content knowledge, strengthening their mathematical knowledge, strengthening pedagogical knowledge so they have these ideas. So I use that as a framework in designing teacher professional development. And there are also good theory that you might want to use about zone proximal development, zone of free movement, zone of promoted actions. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Siti, for the answer. And yeah, we are unfortunately approaching the end of the session. Okay, so maybe we will answer the last question here from Ibu Rina Octavianti. I am interested in Prof. Maisuri's point about using AI to develop professional judgment. But for pre-service teachers who are still developing their pedagogical knowledge, how can they critically judge what to accept or reject from AI? In your view, what needs to come first before we can use AI in this way? So last question, Prof, please.
That's a very beautiful question. How can we ask them to judge if they don't have content knowledge or pedagogical content knowledge? I think my systematic literature review paper proved to be very useful because what it tells us, the studies who shows that Gen AI was useful for pre-service teachers, their approach is guided. They model how to use it. They guide it. They were there to identify this is incorrect, this is correct. So to be able to help them to judge critically, we need to model. We need to make them realize that they need to slow down and see and check and unpack. Because Gen AI, once you ask one question, they can give you 2 pages. Sometimes what I did in my classroom, when I saw my students were busy with their laptop, I asked them and I invite them to go outside of the classroom and stand up outside and we learn. So the point that I was saying here is it requires our judgment as teacher educators in helping them. And first of all, we need to deepen our content knowledge and our pedagogical content knowledge. how do we develop personalized learning with our students with several key roles, and maybe that's another topic, but I am happy to share the publication that's related to that. So in short, we need to help to deepen their content knowledge, their pedagogical content knowledge, the knowledge needed, but we need to add one layer, which is professional judgment. We have to make that more visible and explicit, and that's the job of my research, and I hope my team and I can gain insight, and happy to share with you by the end of next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Siti. This is really great and thought-provoking session today. I can say that we gain a lot, very much from this very rich session. And actually, our audience is from Zoom, Prof. They asked if we can share this presentation slide. Is it allowed? All right. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. And as we close our session today, we would like to thank our speaker today once again, and also all the questions, all the contributed questions today. And with this, we end our session today, and we invite our Dean, Prof. Nina, to give token of appreciation. Yes.
Mungkin intinya apa namanya, backgroundnya bukan itu yang
The title, presentation slide. We move to
kelihatan. Yang slide pertama, bukan yang ini, Sutian. Nah, itu. Udah? Oke dulu, di sini lagi balik. Oke. Bude sama Ali pasti. Udah, pegang aja. Yuk, Pak Budi mau sini. Kemon, jangan malu-malu, ayo. Sih, oh enggak. Nah. What are you? Thank you, Nurul. Okay.
Thank you so much once again. Round of applause, please, for our speaker today, Prof. Siti Maisuri Patahudin. Thank you so much, Prof. And the next, we want to invite our former leader of Estudia, Kak Imran Rosadi, to receive a certificate from our Dean Professor Nina Nurmila.
Okay, we would like to thank Muhammad Imran Rosadi for his dedication as president of the Estudia. Yeah, we are very grateful for your leadership. Thank you very much, Imran. Backgroundnya bendera. Oh begitu. Jadi gimana? Dari sana. Imran, backgroundnya sana. Gimana, Imran? Dia paling ngegaya. Nanti jangan lupa gayamu itu. Imran, gayamu saat wisuda ya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our very authentic President of Estudia, Kak Imran. All right, so for our audiences today, with this we close our session and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.